to have you all here today to gain valuable insights from our panel of industry experts. Before we begin, I do want to let everyone know that this event is being recorded, and this event is designed to give students the opportunity to explore different career options and gain some industry insights from our amazing panelists here. We have a packed agenda, so we can dive right in. My name is Anna Kareem. I'm the moderator for today's panel. I'm a senior studying ECE, and it's my pleasure to guide you through today's session. Here's what we'll be doing today. So we'll begin with a brief introduction by our panelists. After that, I will lead the formal Q&A session, and we do want this panel to be as interactive as possible. So we will open up the panel for audience questions after that. When we do, please indicate that you have your questions by using the raise hand function and turning on your camera if you can. If you have a question, be prepared to unmute your microphone and when prompted. You could also put it in the chat. With that, I think we can get started. So our wonderful panelists, we have their names up on the screen. If you could please share a bit about your background, your current role, any exciting projects that you're working on, and we'll follow the order in which your names appear on the slide. So Trishala, if you could start us off.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Trishla, and I'm working as a researcher at Fujitsu Research of America. So we are located in Santa Clara, that is the Bay Area. And about the work that I'm doing at Fujitsu, so the main research topic that I work on is mainly business process mining and utilizing the state of the art AI and machine learning to build prototype solutions for people and our customers. So, yeah, my role is mainly research oriented, but since I've pursued my master's in applied data science, it is more towards the application of the AI and ML. And yeah, since this discussion is about data science, then I must say that data science is a really huge umbrella. So the tools like AI and ML that you see in the industry is just mainly like utilizing it to tell a story. So yeah, that's me, and I am also involved as a mentor for women in engineering at USC. So any woman in engineering want to join the club, you can shout out, and you can participate in exciting events. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. But yeah, this is my basic introduction. I won't take much time.
Thank you so much. Arham, if you wanted to go next.
Yeah, sure. Hi, uh, I'm Arham. I lead product management here for a bunch of generative AI products. My core focus is how do you build them 0 to 1, and then how do you scale adoption, internal and external, across
powering health
um,
devices, platforms,
yeah, across the North America region and all the way towards APAC. My previous background was mostly towards coding myself, but then I wanted to actually own a lot more in terms of how do you build stuff and then how do you take it to customers. So that's where my focus is today.
Thank you so much. Alner, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. So hi, I'm Ulner. I lead the AI for BI, that's artificial intelligence for business intelligence initiatives at Databricks. So if you're not familiar with Databricks, you can think of it as essentially an enterprise generative AI company. So a little bit about what I do there. I think a concrete use case to have in mind is as follows. Imagine you run, I don't know, like an e-commerce company. And at least here in, I guess it's sunny Seattle, you might wonder, well, what's going on with patio furniture? How is it selling? So one of the products we're building would let you go ahead, open it up, type in that question in natural language. We would take it. We would go crunch and do some interesting machine learning on it, which these days involves talking to one or more LLMs. Those LLMs would interact with your data your e-commerce data and then generate an answer for you. And so that's kind of one, just an illustrative example of the kinds of efforts / products that I'm involved in. Just real quick, before Databricks, I was at a smaller startup where I was basically doing the same thing. I was in academia for a while before that, where, long story short, I think if I was to compress it down to one word, we would say I worked on robust AI. And then I was at Microsoft before that. And then before that, I did my undergraduate. So
That sounds great. Thank you. Jingrong, if you would like to go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jing Rong. I am currently based in San Francisco. I graduated from USC Marshall Master of Science Business Analytics program, MSBA, back in 2016. And I serve as a mentor in US's International Student Program. Right now, I currently work at Amazon's live streaming platform, Twitch, which is primarily known for gaming content. But we recently, not recently, like we have been expanding into music, sports, and other communities as well. Over my days at Twitch, I have worked on multiple products ranging from advertiser and sponsorship solutions to our creators and viewers, to player and broadcasting SDK, basically Twitch's video products. And my role is heavily focused in product analytics, where I partner closely with product managers, engineers to design experiments, define success metrics, and analyze how viewers, creators, advertisers, and developers, the whole ecosystem on Twitch, like engage with the platform. So in short, my focus is on using data science to guide product decisions and improve the overall Twitch experiences. And outside work, I like iPad illustrations. So like I am passionate about illustrations using iPad Procreate. Yeah.
Thank you, Jingrong. So I guess those were introductions. I can start the moderated Q&A now. This is once again a question for all the panelists. If you could share your journey into this field of data science or any adjacent field, and what inspired you to enter this field. So Alnur, if you could start us off here.
yeah, sure. Yeah, interesting question. Let's see. So if I was to trace it back, when I guess, yeah, I was in undergrad and, in the same shoes as some of you, I was a CS major, and just looking back, I was interested in computer science, obviously math, and actually neuroscience. I didn't quite know how to put them all together, but generally I was interested in understanding how the brain works and can we model that computationally or mathematically. And I ended up taking a job at Microsoft, as I'd mentioned earlier, where I worked on Bing, the Bing search engine, so Microsoft's version of Google. And Microsoft was taking a bet on machine learning at that point, because I guess they still are, but getting their behinds kicked by Google. And so that was basically almost by happenstance my kind of entry into machine learning. I knew it kind of had something to do with my interests. Again, math, computer science, and how the brain works, but I didn't really, it wasn't like some, orchestrated plan to get a job working on a search engine. But yeah, I loved it. I loved learning about it. And I wanted to do more. And so eventually I wanted to learn more. I went back to school. I went to graduate school in machine learning. And I think at that point I knew that this was kind of the field for me, because it was a way to kind of mix together all those interests, but also actually create stuff in the real world that people could use, right? So you can, basically using these, these ideas, you can build things like search engines and products that we all know and use every day, but you can also, turns out you can also build models of actually how the brain works and actually answer kind of a number of interesting questions. So I knew this was the field for me, and I kind of really haven't looked back since then. For me, it's just been a question of, do I go or stay in academia, which I had the option to, and I'm happy to talk about, or do I go back to industry, which obviously is what I ended up doing. I haven't really looked back since. So happy to talk about any of that.
Thank you so much. Arham, would you like to share a bit about your journey?
Yeah. I have an interesting journey. So I started my undergrad, was doing com science, and then um, it is so diverse. I had like 4 to 5 internships wherein I was doing web development for a bit, did Android development, started doing ML by the end of it. And then COVID-19 happened, and I was in the right place in the right startup who was doing conversational AI back in the time. For example, there was a big healthcare crisis, and then we were building chatbots and IVR systems that is all automated CCAI on Google's platform, and then we were giving it out to the public sector companies and other big companies here. And then my interest kept growing. I was doing a lot more business. So 6 months I was doing development of how do you build these bots, and then 6 months I was doing how do you make customers successful. Um, then I started my journey at USC, applied for a bunch of internships, got a bunch of similar roles, and then NVIDIA popped up out of the blue in terms of, hey, do you want to do product management? And then I interned there to see how that goes. Was working in translation. How do you do machine translation, for example, English to X number of languages or X number of languages, or like so X to Y. So you do a lot of translation, which is very important as companies are more global. And then I joined back, and then have been doing generative AI since then because ChatGPT happened after my internship. So I've been doing alignment when I started. That was released. Then I started focusing on multimodal models. How do you do more than text? Which means, hey, you can give ChatGPT images as well and videos as well. How do you do all of that and train and then fine tune and evaluate such models? And lately, I've been focused on how do you get the data ready to build such big models across our own internal customers, and then a lot of leading labs that are doing that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Jingrong, if you would like to share a bit about what inspired you.
Yeah, sure. So I think my journey into data science really started with me being very genuine curiosity about like psychology and research methodology. I'm also very curious to learn more about how people behave and make decisions. So I think very early on, I realized data science offers the perfect mix of my analytic background because I major statistics and analytics, and then my interest in psychology. I think essentially I figure out like data science is not just about numbers. It's more about like storytelling and uncover insights that shape the product users use every day. That's what inspired me to pursue this field. And that also motivates me to my work at Twitch, where I can explore how millions of users, like viewers, creators, interact live contents in the Twitch ecosystem. So before Twitch, I was able to transition into my current role in Twitch largely because my prior experiences applying data science in the gaming and entertainment space. So before Twitch, I worked at a mobile gaming studio called Gem City, where I think that's where I learned, I was able to build a strong foundation in product analytics. Mobile gaming is extremely data driven. So I spent a lot of time analyzing metrics like player retention, conversion, and in-game spend, as well as like building models to predict lifetime value. So that experience taught me how to like structure product analytics frameworks and translate business goals into measurable outcomes. And then before that, I was in the USC Annenberg Research Lab. I was doing a audience research project targeting at Marvel fans, and I did a lot of data analysis of the survey data we run. So I think like essentially my experiences at USC helped me get the position in Gem City and eventually transit me to my current role at Twitch.
Yeah, that's such a great perspective. Trishala, if you would like to share a bit about your journey and what inspired you to enter this field.
Yeah, sure. So just like the others, my journey in the field of data science started in my undergrad school. So back in 2018, I was looking for finding out some electives. So my background is mainly computer engineering in my undergrad. And then there was this coursework of machine learning that they were offering. So I was really excited about it because at that time, not a lot of people were talking about it. And the idea of, utilizing the data to train a model and then doing decision making just like humans really, really excited me. So I took the electives and then I participated in like a national level hackathon in India, which is called Smart India Hackathon. So me and my team won for this complex level problem statement. And yeah, I was really, really happy. And, I was like, oh, this is really cool. I should learn more about it. So that's where it started. Then I worked on my final year project as a self-harm prediction model. So I am a pro mental well-being. So I just try to, look at the research in which there is like interdisciplinary study of making mental well-being chatbots. And from there onwards, I thought that maybe I should study more in terms of the application of data science. So that led me to my master's at USC. And yeah, after that, I was looking for some internship. So I did work on my internship at Kioxia, which is a Japanese semiconductor company. And they were looking at someone to, storytell and kind of build a dashboard that can utilize AI to bring some real world insights to, the stakeholders. So in that terms, I was a really good storyteller, and data is all about like reading a story. So you just need to be a really good reader for it. So that's the way my journey started. And then I really wanted to get into the application of AI and machine learning. So my role at Fujitsu, which mainly deals with as a AI researcher, helped me to, strengthen my roots in this industry. And since then, I'm doing research.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know everyone talked about their different journeys, and a lot of you had to transition from different roles. And transitioning into a role or industry can be exciting and challenging as well. So, what skills or experience would you say helped you make the transition into your current role? So, if Arham, you wanted to go first for this one.
Yes. Um, I, I feel anyone can do anything. It's just mostly the learning curve that I personally enjoy and love. So if any given day I'm not learning, I feel my day is not as good. More or less, I've done a lot many things. Start with web development, jumped into an app, and started doing ML models. Then currently product. I feel everything had a good learning curve, and then I really enjoyed learning. So that's my one big takeaway. And I feel there's a lot of transferable skills as you learn and grow in different roles. For example, how do you communicate? How do you ask the right questions? Do you have the patience to actually go through papers and understand what leading labs are doing and all of it? But more or less, it's mostly if you have enough bandwidth to put in the hours and then figure stuff out and get stuff done.
Yeah, thank you so much. Jingrong, if you would like to add a little bit about your view on what skills or experiences helped you transition into your position.
Yeah, I would say for me, when I study at USC, I think I gained very solid foundation for my technical skills. Like I learned my SQL and R and Python through MSBA program. And meanwhile, I do feel like I leverage a lot of USC's career website. Like I got my internship offers from USC career website. And then I also got the Annabelle Innovation Lab research position through I think from a friend referral, where I get exposure to how entertainment industry uses data to do research on the audience. And then I think like all the foundations, the technical foundations and then the industry knowledge foundations I gained at USC help me transit into my role in industry. Like no matter it's my Gem City experiences or Twitch experiences, I think those are very important foundations to build.
Yeah, thank you so much, Trishala. If you could add a little bit about what skills or what kind of activities on campus helped you transition into your role.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So to echo some of the things that they already shared, definitely my master's degree at USC for applied data science helped me initially because we have a good set of elective courses and also the mandatory courses that we are taking. So some of the ones from top of my head that really helped me transition in this role was machine learning for data science, data visualization, data mining. So all these courses, they have like individual projects as well as the part of the course. So, working on those projects and having them as a part of your portfolio really helped me to, interview at different roles. And one more thing is that having, the confidence and good communication skills, being prepared and able to show your work life is something really helped me transition into the role. So yeah, you just need to be at the top of your, game and try to be more creative in the ways you can, show that, hey, yeah, I have some skill set in me.
Yeah, definitely agreed. Eleanor, for the same question for you, because I know you transitioned from academia as well. So if you could share your perspective on that.
Yeah, I guess there's really three things. I think all the previous answers were great, and I'll just build on that a little bit. Yeah, maybe picking up on that last point, I think, okay, so I'm coming from the perspective of building machine learning powered stuff, but I think the same is true even if you are maybe more of a consumer or you're not directly building machine learning powered stuff. But I think math is important. So I was a math minor, and my only regret is I wish I would have just done more math. And so I think it can basically never hurt, and it really does make picking up machine learning so much easier. Like, I mean, I don't even know if this is a dirty little secret, but machine learning, basically it's calculus, a tiny bit of linear algebra, nothing really that sophisticated, case closed, right? So like, I think if the more fluent you are with that, I think you'll have a totally fine time. But that was kind of like, I think that was lesson number one. Lesson number two, again, building on a previous point, was actually, let me make this point first. So I think a sense for what problems actually matter. So when I don't think I developed that sense until I actually worked at Microsoft. I didn't quite develop a good sense of it during internships. Maybe some of you have, but I would just say, by whatever means you can, I think just having a radar for what problems are actually important versus what's just fluff and just kind of it's a problem for problem's sake is actually super important. That will help you in academia if that's the path you go down. It will help you in industry too. Boy, did it really help me in academia, and you may not think it, because there's just an infinite supply of problems, and the name of the game in academia is just picking the ones that actually matter, that you're going to commit to working on for the next 1 to 4 or even 6 years. So it's just super important in all walks of life. And then the third thing, this was a point that was made as well, was communication. So I think that is something also I didn't really get a great handle on until I started working at Microsoft. But I guess to cut maybe a long story short, I think the ability to basically tailor your message depending on the audience is like, gosh, that will just do wonders for you, regardless of the setting that you're in. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think these are all great pieces of advice for all our students who are attending the panel. With that said, I know that data science is a really fast evolving field, and with AI and machine learning, I think there's a lot of things currently changing in the field. So, from your perspective, what are the most exciting advancements in the industry that you see shaping the next 5 years? So, Jingrong, if you would get us started on this one.
Yeah, so I think for me, one of the most exciting changes I see is the rise of AI coding assistant. I don't know how many of you have tried vibe coding. So in Amazon, we have our internal vibe coding tool, which is called Amazon Q, which is very powerful. So basically, with just one line of prompt, like everything, everything will generate it automatically. Like it writes Python code for you, like push the Git command for you. Like basically, like everything is super like automatic. So I would say like those tools can help me writing and debugging code, which makes data science like me like to be more productive and lowers the barrier for people who just starting out. So I think like it also means like I can spend more time trying to focus on problem solving and do more creative stuff instead of like getting stuck on the syntax. Like I don't need to spend a lot of time trying to look for like how should I write, how should I debug my Python syntax like this. I think another thing I see is because there are so many like AI tools, AI like assistants rising up. One thing we have been experimenting on as a hackathon project last year was we are trying to build a SQL generation tool inside of Twitch. So ideally, data users just need to talk to the data assistant. It's a Slack bot. And then the Slack bot will generate the SQL queries for them and recommend trusted report for them. And that saves me and my team a lot of time answering all the ad hoc questions. So we can focus on more like deep dive analysis instead of answering very last minute ad hoc questions raised by data users in the company. Yeah, I think that's my perspective.
That's really interesting, actually. So, thank you so much. Alnur, if you could share a little bit about anything that you find exciting or any emerging technologies that people should keep an eye out for.
Sure, yeah. I guess there's two that come to mind. So one is maybe building on the previous point. Hopefully people know what I mean when I say this, but agentic systems, which are basically just groups of LLMs, slash RAG-based systems, which is kind of like the precursor to agentic-based systems, where you kind of mash together old school machine learning and information retrieval with LLMs. Basically, all that kind of stuff, I think, it is a very fast evolving and fluid area that I don't know, this stuff is really hard to predict, but my sense is that's where, of course, models will continue to get better and better. The base models will get better, but I think the agentic layer is where you actually smash things together to get them to actually produce something useful. So I think that's a trend that's probably going to hold for quite a while. And we haven't quite figured out the right way to put different agents together and things of that sort. So, and I guess to connect the dots to the previous point, agentic systems are sort of what's primarily behind these kind of these vibe coding systems. That's like in broad strokes, that's how they're kind of put together. Excuse me. So that's kind of one trend, and I guess more just maybe even double clicking on that. I don't personally think old school machine learning is going away, like the stuff that you might have learned in an introductory machine learning class, you know, regression, logistic regression. Like I just don't see a world, I don't see a world in which that just completely goes to zero by any means, because there's problems that LLMs are good at. There's problems that old school machine learning is good at. And within old school machine learning, different tools are good at different things. So I think generally the interplay between the two regimes is kind of, that's of personal interest to me. And I think that's something that's going to be kind of vibrant for a while. I guess really quickly, the second trend, I guess my personal I spent a lot of time working with what we would call tabular data, right? So I guess that used to just be data. It's just like it's a table, right? It can have numbers, it can have categorical variables, whatever. And LLMs are fine at ingesting tabular data and saying stuff about it. But I think in general, we've not seen the same kind of productivity gains in reasoning from tabular data as we have maybe from other domains. So I think that's another area that I'm kind of personally curious about.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that insight. Arham, if you would also, same question for you, about any exciting or emerging technologies or trends that you want to talk about.
Yes, actually, I'll divide the question, right? One is where a lot of interest is today in terms of where you can actually go ahead and add value. And then second, I'm seeing a bunch of questions about how do you spot the trends. I'll also give my insight on how I do it. Okay, so about where a lot more focus should be. So everyone spoke about, so base models are built, and then for RAG, you build embedding models, re-ranking models, and you create that pipeline. I'm seeing a big trend wherein either you like one of them mentioned that how coding models are being there, so you generate the code and everything. I would say that vertical specific models and domain specific models are going to get more and more out there, which means you try to reduce the footprint of the model inference at the end of it so that you can save a lot more compute, which helps you do a lot more things. But the major trends that I'm seeing that will happen in the industry, one would be agentic AI, which everyone's spoken about. But the point which I see, which is very important, a lot more single person companies would come up, which means as long as you're able to make these agentic systems yourself, you can actually create amazing products and companies all by AI. You don't need those extra 10, 20, 30 people. So I see that as a very big trend. I'm already seeing a lot more AI adoption internally and externally, wherein a lot more of AI is being used to increase and boost productivity. That can also be used in hand by engineers to make 10x engineering code, which significantly gets the product to the market. The second big trend is physical AI. Everywhere there would be autonomous robots. You could consider them as cars or robots that help you clean, cook, put stuff in laundry and everything. That's a very emerging tech, and that is going to come within 5 to 10 years for sure. Um, but all of it also requires infra level engineering, which means how do you efficiently make sure that the pipeline is giving you the maximum throughput, the minimum latency, compute footprint is the minimum. So that engineering would never go away, which means how do you design and system design stuff. In terms of how do you spot trends, I would say one of the key ones is semi-analysis. It has its own reports, and then the founder is amazing. You would see him on podcasts and everything. I would definitely recommend you guys check it out. And second is very nice way for you to spot trends. It's by looking at keynotes of, for example, how does NVIDIA does a keynote or Amazon does a keynote. That's a very good uh, spotting way. And the second would be a lot of these companies have earning calls. And in earning calls, they mention where they are today and what they're looking for. That's again a very good indicator on where you should focus. And more or less, obviously, you would know research papers. They are a very nice place because everyone in companies still wants to do research and publish papers out. So you might spot trends earlier rather than production systems because they've already written about it and published it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Arham. I'm sure students found that really helpful. I do see a lot of questions coming into the chat already. Just as a quick reminder, we'll officially begin the student Q&A in a few minutes. So please hold on to those questions until then, and we'll obviously make sure to get as many as possible. Trishala, same question for you about any emerging trends you maybe wanted to touch upon.
Yeah, I just want to echo everybody else. LLMs and agentic AI, that's something that we are also really focusing the research on. And one of the challenges that I would like to talk about that we, see in agentic AI solutions is, building an agent which is really domain specific. So a lot of the times when people say that we are building an AI model or, like interactive machine learning model or things like that, they don't understand that how less of your time you spend on building those model and how much you discuss with the domain experts, try to get their insights from how they are doing it manually, so that our agents can probably do the same or maybe do it more efficiently. So that's a really hard challenge, and you just cannot use AI agents for every use case. So identifying which use cases in which you can apply AI agent is something that should be studied, and I think it's getting studied a lot. And the question about in the next 5 years, so I think it should be more of like, if this AI agent phase is successful, then we can see more domain specific agents, and something which is working really well compared to what it's working right now. And personally, I also want to see the progress in the mental well-being field, because now we have the LLMs. So it is really good when interacting with clients and patients to, deal with their emotions and processing their thoughts. So earlier it was just an engineer and a professional who is interacting together to build a solution. But now we have a third brain, which is the LLM itself. So using that as well and trying to build an innovative solution is something that I'm excited about.
Thank you, Trishala. Once again, if you could start us off, Trishala. I know we have a diverse panelist group here, so if you could tell us a little bit about what a typical day in your role and the kind of projects you work on look like.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So my typical day is like segmented, like depends on the day of the week, right? So we have like two, status updates, like the initially and the midweek. So mainly as a researcher, my job is to read research papers, try to understand what's there right now in the state of the art. And also with our current portfolio of AI technologies, we always try to find out use cases in which we can apply AI and machine learning correctly. So we have our internal customer data, and we do a lot of like business process mining. So a lot of the incident tickets that are generated, we try to analyze those tickets and come up with AI solutions that can automate the analysis for our operation managers. So my role mainly deals with first understanding and identifying the use cases, and then probably having multiple brainstorming sessions with the domain experts, try to understand how they are doing their analysis manually right now, and how can AI or data science tools can chip in to make their life better. So that's a lot of brainstorming. Then you develop the prototype, then you validate it. So it's like a really step by step process. And meanwhile, we also try to, have like workshops and seminars and sessions. So as a researcher, I have to participate in that and publish research papers. But my role is mainly focused on the application of the research side. So that's what I do.
Yeah, thank you so much. Arham, same question for you. If you could tell us a little bit about what does a day in your role look like?
Yes, no 2 days are same for me. Every day I feel I do a lot more firefighting. Uh, so generally there's a day I sleep, and then every morning there are new emails and then new fires that come in my way. Um, More or less, I mean, I segment it across multiple verticals. For example, every other day there is more feature requests, bugs, that I need to go ahead and prioritize with engineering and research so that they get into the product. A lot more customer meetings, getting a lot more customer success stories out there. as they're adopting and then integrating, how you go ahead and also align with leadership on what's the mission, what's your goal in 3, 6, 12 months, and if you're still on track. So a lot more leadership updates. And then how do you rally a lot more internal solution architects and other engineers to come build the mission with you? So a lot more influence, power of, even though they do not report into me, it's very consequential for building fast and building quick. And a lot more, I'm lately also using a lot more Coursera and then uh, Copilot to prototype and show demos so that engineering and leadership understands where we are moving with the product that we are building. And then obviously using a lot more Perplexity and emails that come in our way to understand the trends and then what should we be building next.
Yeah, thank you so much. Jingrong, if you wanted to share a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so for me, because I am a data scientist, product analytics focused, so a typical day in my role is more like a mix of collaboration and deep focus work. So DSA, data science analytics, is very cross-functional. And I spend part of my day meeting with product managers and engineers, designers, to align on things like success metrics for specific features, and then experiment design, and then analysis plans, et cetera, et cetera. And then like the rest of my day is usually very hands-on, like doing analysis, coding, and then writing. So at Amazon, we have a very strong writing culture. Instead of presentations, we write documents. So a big part of my job is to writing up results and recommendations in a very clear, structured way. My writing, like those writing reports, are my main deliverables, part of my main deliverables. And they are what get shared across teams to inform decision makings. So I think overall, my work combines technical part, which is a problem solving, and then a lot of communications and making sure that data is used to drive product strategy.
Yeah, that sounds great. Alnur, if you wanted to go next and talk about what you do in your role.
Yeah, sure. So a bunch of different things. I think, I guess mainly a day starts by checking Slack and figuring out what's going wrong, and then kind of jumping in and trying to help fix that. So helping, someone debug whatever the problem is, helping kind of set the technical direction for what the solution should look like. Reviewing PRs, I guess, writing code myself, and just generally mentoring people on the team to make sure they're getting kind of whatever they want out of their careers. I also think at a higher level, stuff like, helping define what's the right strategy for various kind of machine learning powered product, which requires pairing, I think, an understanding of what's happening in the field with what are the business needs and what's the competitive landscape like and things of that sort, translating that strategy into a roadmap, and then further breaking that down into like kind of concrete work streams, and putting the right people on the stream on the various work streams and keeping them motivated and things of that sort.
Yeah, thank you so much. So this is going to be my last question. And after that, we can dive into the student Q&A because I do see a lot of questions. So this is, I guess, a more general version of most of the questions we've been getting in the chat as well. What advice would you give to students building their resumes or portfolios for a career in data science? So Jingrong, if you could start us.
Yeah, so if you want to pursue a career as a DSA, data science analytics, I think my advice for students would be to focus on building like both very strong technical skills like programming and very solid understanding of experimentation and causal inference. So on the technical side, I would say SQL, SQL is the most important is very essential, because if you interview for entry-level positions in every company, in every tech company, I would say, like SQL is definitely, it's one of the things I guarantee like they're gonna test you on. So like a lot of people think like SQL is very easy, but then like I would say because it's like a backbone of working with data in most of companies, and then like you have to master it. Master it will give you like a huge advantage. So, and then beyond the programming, I would say I recommend taking courses that cover research method, and especially those focused on experimentation and causal inference. I think like a lot of them probably have taken that course in your program already, but I really recommend students to also focus on causal inference technique like diff and diff, regression discontinuity, synthetic control, et cetera, et cetera. I think understand how to design experiments and draw causal inference insights from the data would allow you to stand out from other like candidates in the pool. What else? Yeah, I think the portfolio like you have on your resume will be helpful too. Like the past project you have done, like data set you have analyzed, and if you have like some visualizations, you can show it up in your GitHub or your personal website. I think yeah, that'll be great too.
Thank you, Jingrong. Trishala, what would you tell our students in order to stand out in an application?
Yeah, sure. A lot of points what Jingrong echoed. I just wanted to say that, yeah, like with the fast pace and different technologies coming, you cannot be a master of all, but know your basics. I would say know statistics. No, if you're into machine learning, then definitely statistics, math, and also like basic programming language like Python and SQL if you are into data analytics, but definitely be good at it. You don't have to be like really, really pro, but at least you need to get your basics sorted. Other skill sets can be learnable, but yeah, like work on your communications. I cannot emphasize less. Really, you need to have that, confidence in you, go out there, network with people. uh, don't limit yourself just by applying online, but actually try to understand what's the company is looking for or what's the culture like. Are you really into that workspace, or like, is there any other opportunities that you see that might be aligning well to your needs? So yeah, just be out there and be open for any new opportunities.
Thank you, Trishala. Alnur, what advice would you give students?
Yeah, great answer so far. So maybe I'll just kind of plus one aspect of it. So there's kind of no substitute for impact. So I mean, it's easier said than done, but I would just work on stuff that actually matters. Like have I think it's kind of one thing to do a hobby project or a toy project. It's another thing to work on a large scale system that is kind of like, I don't want to say mission critical, but it's like very important to some company's business. So I don't know, in the case of Microsoft, like a search engine, right? For example, or something like that. I think to make that, maybe that's obvious advice. So to make it a little bit more concrete, I think, of the companies that you're looking to apply to, or that you have offers from, I think I would just maybe pay close attention to what are the actual projects you could work on, right? Because that, whatever you do at your next stop, you're going to carry with you to the next stop, right? And then potentially even the next stop. And so I think it's actually probably more important than you think to pick projects well. And I guess if you're trying to if you're in the interviewing stage and you're trying to get into these places, I think it can only help to talk about areas of the business that excite you, right? It's a different matter if you go through the door, then maybe it's a matter of, kind of expressing interest or being choosy about what you work on. But yeah, just work on stuff that matters.
Thank you so much. Arham, if you would like to tell us a little bit about your views on what students should do to stand out on their resumes.
Yes, actually, I'll divide the question, right? There are three aspects here. One, what you should do in general. Two, how can you be good at interview? Three, how do you get the interview, right? So what you need to have on the resume. So for one, I feel since the space is evolving so quickly, you should actually understand, for example, do you want to focus on agentic AI, or do you want to do the traditional data science, or do you want to do generative AI, or like there's so much to do, right? So pick one of them and then try and go deep into the stuff. I would say everyone's using AI in general. For example, everyone you heard from right now, everyone uses AI in their day to day. So if you could actually do the same and show very clearly, articulate it very clearly that, hey, I've been using AI to build projects, do a lot more, that would be very mission critical. And then couple of in general things that I feel are very important: spotting the trends, staying up kept with the trends, which means if you read a paper which comes in last night, and if you have a interview tomorrow, and if it applies, then obviously the person knows that you are always on the read. And then for interviews, I feel mock interviews really help. So always do a lot more mocks, because I've seen a lot of my friends were amazing, but they may not be exactly as good in the interviews, and it could also be vice versa. So do a lot more interviews so that you could actually practice interviewing. And then communication is important, but the nuance there is Lua, listen, understand, and answer, which means generally ask questions, check assumptions before you start answering. That shows the interviewer that you've actually cared to listen and break the problem down. And always ask follow-up questions. Goes a good mile. Couple of things that I feel on the resume: everyone should have a subscription of some model based on the job you're applying to. Always ask the LLM to tune your resume so that there are keywords that your resume would pass through the systems, so that at least people get to see it. And then experience really matters, which means have less on the resume, but it should be more impactful, uh, and clearly articulate the results. Generally, just show results that what was your part, rather, even if it's a group project, it's always important to just show individually what you contributed to. And if it's open source or on GitHub, it's very easy for people to hyperlink it and then go ahead and read about it. And always stick to one pager and very clean resume style so that it passes the systems. It's very easy to read. Generally, uh, people will spend a minute to 2 minutes at max on your resume. So have the important stuff up top and then everything else down.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all our panelists for your wonderful insights. We can now open the floor to questions from the audience. So please drop your questions in the chat or raise your hand using the Zoom feature, and I'll call on you to ask them directly. Please note that students with cameras on and hands raised will be given a priority. So as we don't have anyone raising their hand as of now, I can ask some of the questions from the chat. So I think Arham touched upon the first question a bit, so I can move on to the next one. It seems like the hype these days, as well as we are all aware, is AI or ML. How does the computer science major conflict with data science major in regards to marketing ourselves? Would and any of our panelists can answer, so anyone who wants to answer could.
I can take it. So it all depends on the courses you take, right? For example, I was in com science, but then I did take machine learning for data science because it was very application oriented, and I heard very good reviews about it, and the course was actually amazing. Uh, the things that I've seen, right? Whatever you put on your resume, it's mostly For example, what internships or what work you've done before, what projects you've built. The major part a lot of people don't generally see, which means, for example, even if I had computer science, that's not necessarily someone would have read it. It's more about the experience in the projects or the papers and publications. So I feel it's mostly about the skills and things you know rather than what you have. Okay, that's just about the optics, but in terms of data science versus computer science, there are a lot more nuances. For example, BERT models are still very popular in terms of classification because they're much smaller, whereas an LLM is much bigger and it requires a lot more compute. So if you're amazing at, for example, tuning BERT models for specific classification jobs, you're amazing. Like people would love to have you on the team. Whereas the other skill set is for someone who's actually built an LLM or customized an LLM, that's a very different use case and a persona a hiring manager would look for. So, like I said, always find out what you are actually interested in and then dabble and play around and figure what sticks.
Thank you so much, Arham. I hope, Eugene, that answered your question. We have another question from Eugene. Do you have any insights in how to get exposed to the current trends or topics in the field of data science?
Yeah, I can answer a little bit on that one. So you can definitely look at some newsletters to get started with. There's something like TLDR, and then I would say watch a lot of YouTube videos as well. So, like how to build a chatbot, LLM supported chatbot from scratch, and also like documentations. So, a lot of these new frameworks like LangChain, LangGraph, they have like their own documentations. So, the best way to go to it is just reading that, and also they have their own customized YouTube videos or tutorials. So you can follow that, but it all depends on what domain you're targeting. So if you're just looking to analyze some data, then you can find a lot of open source data on Kaggle and kind of participate on the competitions and do it. But yeah, like if you are looking for finding out and learning or trying out different LLM models, then Olama is there. They have a good source of locally running LLM models. So you can just download it and give it a spin, and then you can compare which models are working better. So yeah, it's more about like combination of one or more things. There's a lot of information, but I would usually go with the documentation directly from those frameworks than YouTube videos. And also to stay updated, you can subscribe to any news channel.
Yeah, Jingrong.
Yeah, I think I have something to add on, like as more like a general recommendation to students. So I think what can be very tag block from companies, because I know like a lot of companies like Netflix, Airbnb, Pinterest, they have a very, and also Uber, like they have a very good detailed tag block talking about how they design their system, like data science recommendation systems, or like how they apply causal inference technique to figure out how certain feature impact user engagement, etc. I would say like one thing you can do is like browsing more blogs from those tech companies. And second advice I think I can give is to look for conferences. Usually, if you go to a lot of conferences, you will see a lot of like different talks on some that touches on the current trends and topics in the field of data science, Gen AI, LLM, etc. And I think it's a really good opportunity for you to listen to what they're talking about, what companies are building, and then potentially network with the speakers. Yeah.
Just to add, Jingrong, you reminded me of an amazing thing. So USC also has a grant that you can apply to for attending a conference every other semester. So might as
Nice.
well use that. And a lot of times virtually these conferences are free. So it's not necessary that you need to fly in, but you can also do it virtually. But yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. Ethan, I see you have raised your hand, so you can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. I had a question specifically for Jingrong, but also I guess anyone, feel free to step in and answer. I'm also interested in breaking to like the data science analytics space, more specifically in like the product side. And my question was, how do you feel like these entry-level roles in product data science are changing? Kind of like going back to how you said a lot of the low-level work, especially like the coding side of things, is being like the entry barrier is really not there anymore, given that there's so many AI tools. How do you feel like the assessment for entry-level roles is changing, and how do you think entry-level candidates can stand out?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think from my perspective, like I'm also like an interviewer in Amazon. Like I don't think our recruiting process changed a lot in the past 3 years, I would say. Yeah, so for us, I would say like the way we access candidates is still the same. But then like I think another question is where you are trying to ask, how should you stand out? So I think for DSA is very like domain focused, experience focused positions. So I think like one practical advice I usually give to students is like if you are trying to go for DSA positions, maybe like keep open-minded, apply for data analyst positions as well. Because if you have like industry experiences as an analyst, it's going to be very easy for you to transit to a data science position, especially for DSA. So I think for me, like the way for you to stand out would be doing more internship, like getting industry knowledge, and then like building up your product sense. And basically, I would say like as long as you are included in the hiring loop, and then you can showcase if you understand the product well, and then like if you can work well with the product managers, engineers, if your communications is good enough, I would say like those can help you stand out, yeah, from other candidates.
If I could just, oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
just to add, right, hackathons are a good way to break into this because you actually meet a lot of these companies actually organize hackathons. And if you are just in that hackathon and they can actually see you problem solve, it's a very easy way for you to connect with the teams that you may be interested in. But a lot of these winners also get benefits of, for example, interview waivers and everything, and they directly get into the process. So that's another trend that I've seen. And in terms of AI, I've also seen a lot more whiteboarding sessions wherein they actually try and dig deep into logic rather than buffer code. But again, you never know what can change there.
Thank you so much. I just had a quick follow-up as well. Like on the topic of building up your product sense, like do you have any advice on how to specifically develop that? Like would you say like, let's say I'm interviewing at a specific company, you would just go to that company's website, try to observe the product, but like what kind of things would you want to like learn more about in order to develop your product sense?
That's a good question. So I think my advice would be like for the company you're interviewing for, think about what kind of customers they have. Like for example, for companies like DoorDash, they have different type of customers. You could be like a dasher or like a customer taking orders. Like which customers are you trying to analyze on? Yeah. And I would say like try to use their product as much as possible and think of you as the PM. Like if you are the PM, if you're the product owner for that product, like what are you going to track? And then another practical advice I usually give people is to read more design books, because essentially all the product is about like design, making users like easily use this product. And then like I think one way to do that is trying to understand why they put, for example, certain button here, why the checkout flow is designed like this. Yeah, so think more from the design perspective.
Got it. Okay, appreciate it so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ethan. I think Ian has his hand raised. So Ian, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, I have a question for all the speakers. So, I'm a sophomore majoring in applied mathematics and super interested in large language models and AI. And I have this question that how do you think I should start in my career if I have very little prior experiences like internships and stuff? Because a lot of jobs and internships you work online, you're gonna realize they ask for previous experience, which I barely have. And based on that, do you think it's a good idea to start building my personal projects first and then apply for internship, or I can do it at the same time, or I can just apply for an internship directly? And yeah, thanks.
Would any of our panelists like to answer Ian's question?
Yeah, I can answer. So, based on my opinion, the question is like mainly whether to wait, build a portfolio, then apply to internships, or rather just apply it directly. So I would say that a lot of the companies, like it depends, like they have cycles and periods in which they, hire interns. So essentially, waiting game doesn't work well. You can apply directly by having at least a couple of projects started. It doesn't need to be really, really fancy, top to bottom, perfect research or things like that. You can start by vibe coding as well, At least you need to start something so that you can show them that, yeah, I have a potential. I'm working towards this. It might not be a completed project, but if you are able to talk the technical aspects of it and what is your vision to, make that project as an end goal, I think that would really support you in those terms. And yeah, as like for internship, prior experience like is not always required. It depends. But if you are, filling it up with some other experience like voluntary research at USC, or having your personal project from the courses you take, or any part-time internships that you're doing, that can also be like a project that you can talk about in the interviews. So yeah, you can have some experience if you haven't worked as well.
Got it. Thank you.
So, what worked for me while I was doing internships was apply as soon as rules are out. Which it's essentially a queue. So like earlier you are in the queue, the higher the chance someone will review it and then give you a call. Second, I feel like Trishula mentioned, right? You can always like keep working on yourself, which means your LinkedIn and your personal website or wherever you're pushing stuff should always be updated. Which means, for example, even if the company starts interviewing 6 months down the line, they could just quickly. Everyone checks LinkedIn, by the way, so they'll go to your LinkedIn and just check what you've been lately doing. So keeping that updated really helps. And then a lot of times, I would say what would help you is if you have friends or people in companies, and if their teams are hiring, which means they can actually vouch for you. That also goes a long way.
I think another piece of advice I can give is maybe try to look for on-campus opportunities first. Because for me, I got the Innovation Lab research assistant position in Ann Arbor Innovation Lab, and then that helped me get into entertainment. I think for you, like probably try to look for like on-campus internship or part-time opportunities that can help you like at least build something on a resume. And meanwhile, I do agree, like apply as soon as possible. Apply once the internship opportunity is out. Like yes, because right now there are so many candidates on the market. Sometimes recruiters might only pick the one like probably apply on the fields first, like a few days. Yeah.
Only thing
Got
I'll add is
it.
I would plus one the on-campus opportunities, by the way. I think that's actually that's how I got some of my first experience too. And I think I don't underestimate, I think how, I think having training in math, I think is attractive to computer science labs and things like that, right? Because that is the raw skill set that you need to do that kind of work. So I think, fingers crossed, I think you'll have good luck that way.
Got it. Thank you guys so much. It's really helpful.
Thank you, Ian, for your question. I briefly saw Elizabeth raise her hand. Did you want to ask a question, Elizabeth? If
No, I have my
not,
question answered.
sorry.
I already had it answered, like someone
Okay, got
already
it.
mentioned.
Thank you.
it.
Thank you so much. Because we don't have anyone raising their hand right now, I can take some questions from the chat. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Ask, can you give some input regarding certain good free data sources we can use to work on the domain specific areas?
Yeah, I search for a lot of research-based data. So you can definitely check out our USC's library as well. We have a good source of data that is specifically collected for research purpose. So definitely check out USC. But apart from that, Kaggle is pretty popular. There's Data World. A lot of the research papers that you will see on the internet, they have their own GitHub repositories. So sometimes GitHub can also provide you with it. For specific to LLM, Hugging Face definitely have a lot of the repos, and you can actually try out some pre-trained models from those websites. So yeah, definitely those would be my recommendation to look for data.
To add on that, I think a lot of companies actually have API. So if you're like very hands-on in tech, try to use, for example, Twitch has API. Like technically you can web scraping all the Twitch viewership data using Twitch API. Yeah, so maybe you can look into that.
So I work on the product, I build the product that actually looks at like raw sources, academic papers, and then how do you get it training ready. We wrote an amazing blog on how do you domain adapt it. I'll just put in the chat if someone's interested. We did it for our own model for chip data, but we've seen a bunch of customers do it for other domains. That could be very useful.
I hope that answered your question, Dee. Eugene, I think your question was already answered. If not, you can ask again, but for now, I'm gonna skip to to Jackie's question. What websites did you use to improve with communication skills? Did you also go in person event in regards to building communication skills or confidence? Example, Toastmasters.
Well, what worked for me, I would say, so this is highly biased, but to improve your communication skills, sometimes recording yourself as a, mock interview, you can definitely find out some pain areas because we are the best critic for ourselves. So I think recording and, just pretending that you're in an interview can also boost your confidence and try to, improve your communication skills. And also like in-person event, definitely like until and unless you don't go out there and talk to people, you won't know what to ask or what to talk. So always go out, talk to people. It necessarily shouldn't be more of like, it shouldn't be like, hey, I want a job, but try to interact with them just like a human. Just be curious, ask questions, what they are working on, and hopefully you can get some, experience from it.
One thing that has actually worked for me. It's been always outgoing, but in terms of like professional communication skills, I feel uh, if, for example, you're sending a LinkedIn request or anything, it needs to be very targeted. Uh, for example, a direct message really helps because then someone understands why you're reaching out to them, which means targeted messaging really helps. Or even if you're meeting someone, in general, curiosity really helps because if you're in the same space and you have similar common ground to talk about, then you would articulate problems much better. So I would say it's here and there. And then I'll give you one secret here, okay? So whenever you go to conferences, a lot of decision making generally doesn't happen until 5. It's after 5 when parties are happening. So just if you're going to conferences, definitely go to the parties or mixers. That's where you will generally find people with the guards down and then a lot more approachable.
Yeah, I would say like don't be afraid of presenting because I feel like presenting is a great way to train your public speaking skills. And then by preparing the presentation deck, it helps you to think through what we're trying to talk about, who is the audience, like more logical way, in a more logical way.
Thank you, Jingrong. Yifan, you have your hand raised, so you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, so I have a question. So like from my experience, I found like even like computer science or data science, this kind of realm, they kind of emphasize on real work experience. So I'm actually thinking if it's worth to make a trade-off, like instead of getting straight A on your transcript, is it worth to spend more time on like joining conferences or getting more experiences just to like put coursework sometimes aside? Yes. That's
Okay,
my
I
question.
I have an interesting answer. I would say it depends on what your goal is, right? Would you be really happy if you get a 4.0, or would you be really happy if you actually go to the conference and learn something new? It's at the end, you need to balance what you would be really happy about and not so sad about, and then go about making that decision. So if I had to choose, for example, attending GTC or asking a professor, hey, can I delay this assignment by 2 days? I would generally prefer doing that and actually also time manage myself so that I'm not delaying my assignment. But if worst comes to worst, I would just like check in with the professors. In my experience at USC, they were a lot more accommodating as long as they saw a real reason. So it's more about your happiness.
Got it. Thank you.
I see Olivia has her hand raised. So Olivia, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Right. A lot of you mentioned that you worked in like a research lab before you started your full-time position, and I was wondering how do companies regard like research experience versus internships, like during the summer, and how can you frame like your research to like fit into like a role in industry?
Well, I can just say that having the research background is just like an additional add-on skill set because they can be more confident that you have your basics in check. And since you have done some concrete research, you have a good idea of the state of the art. And in the technical aspect of the interviews, you can kind of get an upper hand, is what I believe. But then again, it depends on company to company. So the role that you're applying, the research work is not something really beneficial. It's more like dealing with the customers or the stakeholders. Then it wouldn't necessarily help you, but definitely research experience never harm you at all. So having that can be a good experience. Like, you can eliminate the academia early on in your career if you don't like working at a research lab. So in future, you won't apply to research labs. You will focus on the, actual companies like the manufacturing or any other telecom industry. So that's my personal opinion. It will never harm you, but it will give you a little bit of flavor, what it looks like, and what it requires to be in a research lab.
I feel it's a twofold problem actually. If you like, regardless of if you do research or not, if you actually do research, you like what interviewer would see is the person has an ability to try and solve ambiguous problems. But given that, I would say it also depends on the horizon of research that you're planning to put into actually solving a problem. That should play a very key role in actually deciding if you want to go ahead and do it. Which means for now, for example, if you were doing research in reinforcement learning, it's pretty hot, which means anyone in the industry trying to fine-tune models would be eyeing for you to take the job. So spotting the trend and where in horizon it will fall really, really matters.
Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. I think we are almost nearing the end of our session. I do have a few more questions in the chat, but if anyone doesn't have any other questions, looks like we covered a lot of ground, so we can start to wrap up. And before we wrap up the webinar portion, I'd like to thank all of our panelists for sharing their time and expertise today. And before we exit out, I want to, if we could go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so I want you guys to take a look at all our other upcoming industry insight panels and other industry and recruiting based events. So it was lovely having everyone here. I hope it was as fun for you all to attend. So yeah, I think we're gonna end our session, and I do see a lot of questions about the recording of this session. It will be